Hey everybody, Alex here from Android Central with a Sony Ericsson Xperia Arc. This is Sony Ericsson's flagship phone for 2011 and we finally got our hands on one. It's a pretty big phone. We've got a 4.2 inch display on the front. It doesn't really feel like a big phone though because it's ridiculously lightweight and ridiculously thin. This phone weighs something like 116 grams, which is kind of crazy for a device this size. So it's very lightweight, fits in the hand very nicely thanks to this arched back here. Mostly covered in black plastic, so it does become a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but that's just kind of a trade-off you have to make with a phone that's this light. So let's take a look at the actual hardware. We've got back, home and menu on the front here. All physical buttons. We don't have a search button. That's pretty standard for a Sony Ericsson device. Up at the top we've got the power button and a dedicated HDMI slot right here. This just clips out. We'll be testing that in the course of our review. World's smallest volume rocker on the side next to the USB port. Down here a physical camera button, which is always nice to see. On the bottom is the microphone. On this side we've got the headphone jack. Around the back we've got the 8 megapixel camera, more on that later. LED flash there as well. And if we snap this off we can see where the battery lives. We've got the SIM card back here, SD card next to it and the battery. All pretty standard. So let's snap this back on and we'll start the phone up and we'll be right back. So now would be a pretty good time to talk about the screen. It's a 4.2 inch Super LCD on here running at 854 by 480. Sony's calling this the reality display. Pretty good viewing angles as you can see. This also has Sony's mobile Bravia engine. This is similar technology that you'll find on Sony TVs that helps with contrast enhancement. Also things like noise reduction in videos, which is good to see. So if we head into the menus quickly, we can see that this is running Android 2.3.2, so not the latest version of Gingerbread, but Gingerbread all the same. In terms of other specs, we've got second generation 1GHz Snapdragon in here, 512 megs of RAM, and for apps you've got 380 megs available, so not the largest amount of storage in the world, but definitely better than something like the Nexus 1 where you're only left with something like 100 megs for your own apps. Not sure if you can see there, but we've installed quite a few apps on this phone and we still have a good 250 megs left, which is okay. It's not bad, but it's not a mind-blowing amount of storage either. So anyway, here we are back at the home screen. We've got 5 of them here, customized with your standard Android widgets and some Sony Ericsson stuff as well. We've also got the customizable dock down the bottom of the screen, and we can swap out any of these apps and replace them with anything we like, which is cool. Now let's take a look at some of these widgets, all pretty standard stuff. We've got the Timescape widget on the side there that shows social network updates, new text messages, missed calls, things like that. And we've also got this neat little Rolodex thing at the side that shows photos and videos that you've taken on the phone. There are a few other widgets available. Let's load the widgets menu up and take a look. We've got the usual Android stuff, clock, calendar, things like that. A few Sony Ericsson specific clock widgets which are nice, various on-off settings buttons. There's a help and support thing as well. Let's load this up and then dump it straight in the trash so we can take a look at this cool little 3D effect. So there we go, another cool 3D feature is this leap effect, kind of reminiscent of HTC Sense. If you pinch out on the home screen you can get a list of widgets and just click one of them and it'll take you to the screen that it's on. Let's take a look at the app drawer. This is very nicely animated, arranged in pages of 16 apps, and you can arrange them any way you like. You can arrange them in your own order and move them around yourself. You can also choose to list them alphabetically or by frequency of use or installation date. So let's move on and take a look at the browser. This is pretty much the stock Gingerbread browser, ever so slightly skinned, although not really appreciably different from what you'll get in stock Gingerbread. Also comes with one of my pet hates in the stock browser, which is this little button down here. There's no way of turning this off in the settings, even though you'll probably be using pinch to zoom most of the time. Not really a big deal, but something that still kind of bugs me about the stock Android browser. Anyway, let's head back to the app drawer and see what we've got. Most of this stuff is, at least on the first page, it's just reskinned standard Android apps. There's the usual stuff like the calculator, alarm clock and calendar. As you can see we've got the stock Android gallery app here. No complaints there, that was a very nice app. And if you buy this in the UK you'll also get the BBC iPlayer app pre-installed. Now let's take a look at the camera app briefly because this is a major feature of this phone. It has more proprietary Sony camera technology than I can even remember. But all you really need to know is that the camera is very, very good for stills and for video. Stills you'll get up to 8 megapixels in 4:3 orientation or 6 megapixels in widescreen. For video, you're looking at a rock solid 30 frames per second at 720p regardless of lighting conditions or anything like that. It's also got Sony's X-More R technology, which makes recording indoors or in poor lighting really, really easy. We shot a couple of test videos with the Arc indoors and in low light, and the video is just as smooth and as sharp as it is when you're recording outside, which is great. The camera app also gives you access to a bunch of settings for the video and photo camera, although if you're not much of a photographer then it works just as well with everything set to automatic. So let's jump back into the app drawer and see what we've got. There's Let's Golf on there by default. Also Liveware, which lets you set certain apps to launch when you plug a charger in or plug headphones in. And there's the DLNA powered Media Center app. Messed around with this a little bit, and in our experience it just seems to work. No problems with it whatsoever. You will need quite a fast network if you're planning on streaming HD quality recordings on here though. Here we've got the Arc's music app. It's more or less the same as the stock Android music app, just with a slightly different skin. Next up is the Office Suite app. A lot of phones have an app that's similar to this, for viewing such exciting things as documents and spreadsheets. And moving on to the next page, we've got the closest thing to bloatware that you'll find on the Arc. It's this TouchNote postcard sending app. You get one postcard credit to start with, and then you've got to buy some more. So this is probably not something you're going to be using on a regular basis. Sony Ericsson's also included its Play Now store. This is its own web-based store for music, apps and games. You can buy all three on here, and it uses carrier billing, so anything you do buy will be included in your next phone bill. We'll definitely be taking a closer look at this in our review. Let's close that down and talk about the Sony Ericsson Sync app. This offers similar functionality to what you get with your Google account. It's a way of backing up contacts and other information to the cloud and restoring to other Sony Ericsson phones if you want to do that. Next up we've got the Timescape app, which offers similar functionality to the Timescape widget that we saw on the home screen before. Shows text messages and missed calls and updates from Facebook and Twitter as well. One thing to bear in mind if you're going to put social networking updates on here though is that you're going to get a lot of spam through in your home screen. But thankfully you can pretty easily control what does come through in your Timescape feed. You can turn off things like Twitter and Facebook if you're just interested in seeing recent texts and missed calls and things like that. One last app we're going to take a look at is Track ID. This is more or less the same as something like Shazam or SoundHound. It's ad supported, but it is at least a fully featured version, so you're not going to be limited in the number of tracks you can look up per month or anything like that. I used it a couple of times. It seems to work reasonably well, although obviously with this kind of app your mileage may vary. So let's head back into settings quickly and check out some Sony Ericsson specific features. There's a settings download option here that lets you download APN data for MMS messages and mobile internet, which is quite useful when you're setting the device up. There are also settings here to control how the phone behaves when you plug it in through USB. The first time you plug it in, it'll prompt you to install the PC Companion software, and when you do that, whenever you plug it in afterwards, you'll have the option to transfer media to it without mounting the SD card, which is really useful. It lets you still use the SD card for things like apps, but at the same time transfer photos and videos to and from your phone. So there you go, some really interesting features in the Xperia Arc and a nice design too. We're going to be playing with this over the next week, and we should have a review up soon. Thanks for watching.